Hey guys, what's up? So, this video I'm going to show you the very basics of tanking. A lot of people think tanking's hard. It's actually not, unless you're doing higher tier duties and trials, but at a base level, tanking's actually not that hard. Basically, all you have to do as a tank is turn on your tank stance, right? Say you're in the dungeon, Total Rack, whatever you're in, right? You want to make sure you have your tank stance, which for Paladin is Iron Will. Turn that on. It'll be right here, next to your character. That means your enmity that you generate is increased. So whenever you attack an enemy at all, you'll gain hate. And hate is basically how much the enemies hate you. They're gonna hit whoever they hate the most. Healers generate hate by healing the tank. DPS generate hate by damaging them, because it's like, ow, you're hitting me, I'm gonna kill you now. Or, hey, you're healing that guy that's hurting me, so now I'm gonna go after you. You know what I mean? But tanks, they can manage the hate, and they don't have to do the most damage, and they don't have to necessarily heal in order to gain hate. With the tank stance, they gain hate automatically, so make sure you turn that on. Make sure it's on when you're running a dungeon. For different tanks, it's different. Like, for warriors, it's called Defiance. For gunbreakers, it's called Royal Guard. And for Dark Knight, I believe it's called Grit. But I haven't really touched Dark Knight, sorry. But basically, what you do is once your tank stance is on, you want to run over to the monsters, right? You see those guys right there? You want to make sure your party doesn't get hit by them, because they're squishy. They can't take damage. You can take damage. You're the tank. It's your job to protect everybody. So, as a tank, I recommend when you run into a group of enemies, use your ranged attack. Paladin has shield lob. So run up to them and shield lob them. But then when you shield lob them, all of them are gonna target you. So what you want to do after that is use an AoE attack, like Total Eclipse, a spinning attack. Once I do that, I'll hit every single enemy, and the hate will be generated onto me. So I'm actually gonna just demonstrate that. Now they're all on me. Now I spin, and now they're all on me still. And then what you want to do is spam your spinny attack. Spin it to win it. While your party does all the damage. And there we go, we won. That was easy. One thing that newer tanks seem to forget about, or they just don't really notice, is when you're tanking, you don't want the enemies facing the party, because the enemies will shoot these AoEs out that are like cones, and if it's facing the party, they're likely to get hit if they're not paying attention, or they're too busy looking at their bars or whatever. So what you want to do is, when you pull a group of enemies, hit them right after you shield lob them, range attack them. You want to turn them away from the party. See how they're facing you and the party is facing their backs? That way your party's safe. And if they do an AoE like that, they miss. They're not going to hit the party, you know? And that's literally it. That's literally all there is to tanking for the most part. A lot of people think the tank has to take the lead. Yes and no. You don't. You want to make sure your team's not getting hit. So that means you should always be the first one to intercept the enemies. Even if you aren't the first one to intercept the enemy, it's not the end of the world. You'll live, you know? As long as you pick up the aggro. Like, I'm actually going to show that right now. Let me find some enemies. There's an enemy. Let's see, how do I do this? Look at this. I'm gonna let them fight, right? Like, you don't want this to happen. This is not tanking. What you want to do while your tank stance is on, hit them. You'll get aggro. See, now it's on me. They happen to kill that thing, but since I hit this thing while my tank stance is on, now it's after me. And it's ignoring them. If there's a bunch of enemies, like the way I hit that thing, I use my single target attack, but if there's a bunch of enemies, just run up, spin, spin, and then if you want, you can use your single target. But if you're pulling big groups of enemies, you're gonna want to use your spin, especially if your party's using AoE attacks, because then you burn them down a lot quicker if everyone's chipping in doing AoE attacks. What else should I show? Oh, so say your party's fighting, they have aggro, and no matter what you do, let's say you can't gain enmity. Like, you're hitting them, the enemies are completely ignoring you, right? You can use provoke. Now this thing's on me, because I just provoked it. So if you ever lose an enemy, you can provoke it, or you can shield lob it. Because shield lob also generates enmity, I believe. Yeah, increased enmity. Additional effect, increased enmity. So if you lose an enemy and it's difficult to get enmity, provoke it. And worst case scenario, spam shield lob. Spin it to win it. Make sure your tank stance is on. Because if your tank stance is on, you should not be losing enmity. And it's really that simple. I'm gonna break it back down again. So tank stance on. Shield lob. Spin it to win it. Make sure it's not facing the party. And there you go. Because as a tank, you can take all the damage. You can take damage that they can't dream to take. And this part's pretty important too. Whenever you're tanking enemies, you have defensive cooldowns. Like Rampart reduces damage taken by 20%. Sentinel reduces damage taken by 30%. These moves right here, arm's length, additional effects, slow 20%. Reprisal reduces damage dealt by nearby enemies by 10%. Like, these are all defensive cooldowns. So while you're tanking an enemy, think of it this way: while you're tanking, you're the one getting hit. The healer has to heal you, right? Healer has to heal you from taking damage. So sometimes people may get hit by stuff accidentally, or maybe your gear isn't too great, so you're taking a lot of damage. What would really help is while you're tanking, while you're fighting, maybe turn on your Rampart, your Sentinel, your Reprisal, your Arm's Length. Don't click all of them on at the same time. You want to alternate. You click one, the little timer should show up. When it goes away, click the next one, the timer should show up. When it goes away, click the next one, the timer shows up, so on and so forth, and the cooldowns will come back on. You can turn it back on. I'm going to show you an example of that as well. I just gotta, here we go. Hit the enemies. Spin it to win it. Turn on your tank, your defensive cooldown. Now you're gonna take way less damage, and it makes your healer's job a hell of a lot easier. Also, if you think the next hit might kill you, but you want to stall for the healer to heal you, or you have invulnerability stacks or something like that, then yeah, you want to pop your defensive cooldowns. Or your tank action, Hallowed Ground. Usually at level 50-ish, you get these skills that make you completely invulnerable to most attacks. They have different pros and cons depending on your tank class, but those things can usually come in pretty clutch. But yeah, that's about it. Tanking's not that hard. I think I've covered everything, or at least the basics, the very basics. Yeah, as you play tank more, you'll get more used to the idea of tanking. It'll be way easy. It's already easy, but it'll be easier. So just don't be afraid to try it out, you know? And if anyone yells at you for not knowing where you're going, or for messing up, for making a mistake, just ignore them, you know? Just do your best to improve and ignore them. Like, I'm not a perfect tank. Like, I can tank, yes, but sometimes they'll get aggro first and they'll get hit a couple times, and I'll just be like, let me grab those real quick. I feel like people complain just because they got hit, and it's like, my opinion is, did you die though? Are we good? We're good, so what do you have to complain? And everyone doesn't have to be perfect, okay? You know? With Gunbreaker, your tank stance is Royal Guard. Come at me. Your ranged attack is Lightning Shot. And your spin attack is Demon Slice. Lightning Shot. Spin it to win it. As Warrior, your tank stance is Defiance. Your ranged attack is Tomahawk. And instead of a spin, you have Overpower, which hits in a cone. Like, think of a triangle in front of you. See how it's hitting that other dummy in front of me? But when I go over here, it's not hitting it. But as you level up, you get Mithril Tempest, which is a spin. And then, last but not least, for Dark Knight, your tank stance is Grit. Your ranged attack is Unmin to spell for Dark Knight. And then, instead of a spin, it's like an AoE circle called Unleash. Looks pretty badass.